I served in San Antonio for about 18 months. Like I had told you guys, I had gotten sick in MTC, but I hadn't really experienced anything until I was out for a while. At like 17 months, I started experiencing some sickness symptoms, and I started getting sick again. And it came to a point where I actually got super sick, and I had to be sent home. And when I was being sent home, I remember talking to my mission president, and he said, Elder, he's like, you served a faithful mission, and you've done the best that you could have done, and I'm proud of your service, and thank you for serving the Lord. And I remember he told me, he's like, I'll give you your release papers, and you'll go home, and then your stake president will release you, and then you can take care of yourself, and just know that you served a faithful mission. And I remember going home, I was kind of ashamed of myself. I was upset because I knew I wasn't really done. I knew I truly wasn't done. And I knew that I had signed up for 24 months, not for 17 or 18 months. And so I was kind of bitter, and I had a bitter taste in my mouth because I truly didn't want to come home. For me, coming home was the worst thing possible, because obviously I tried my hardest to prepare myself to serve a mission, and I tried my hardest to be the best missionary that I could be, to just be sent home. And so I remember when I got on that plane, got sent home, I basically just sat in the plane, and I was wordless. Like, I didn't really say much. I had the chance to obviously share the gospel until the person that was sitting next to me, she was actually not from Utah, but she was going to Utah to visit some family. And she just was asking me about, what I did as a missionary. And I had the chance to explain to her what it was truly, what we truly did as missionaries of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and what we taught about. And so basically, it was a great opportunity for me to be able to teach somebody. But at the same time, I was kind of, down on myself because I didn't want to go home. And I remember when she asked me if I was done with my mission, I looked at her and I said yes, but it just tore my heart because I knew I wasn't. And I didn't obviously say anything, but I remember getting off at the airport, and my young men's leader was waiting for me down at the bottom. And he just gave me the biggest hug and welcomed me home. And he said, he's like, you served faithfully. He's like, let's get you better. Let's get you to the doctor and figure out what's going on with you, and then we'll see where it goes from there. And I remember going home, driving home. We stopped for dinner. I wasn't even hungry. I didn't even eat. I was just kind of upset, and I didn't say much. And he was, asking me questions about my mission, but I really didn't want to say much because I knew I wasn't done. And I remember I just told him, this isn't it. Like, I'm not done. I don't think I can be done yet. And he told me, he's like, we'll see when you get home. Just figure things out, and let's get you healthy, and then we'll see where it goes. And I was like, but my mission president gave me my release papers, and I just explained that to him. And he just, he didn't say anything. He just smiled and kept driving. And I remember as we got to Logan, back into my stake center, my stake president was waiting for me in that room. And he comes out, and he's just like, Elder Cruz, welcome home. He's like, it's so good to see you. I haven't seen you in forever. And I was just like, I was grateful to see him, but at the same time, I kind of wasn't, because I knew I wasn't done. And he's like, let's meet for a minute. And so I remember as we went inside his office, we had a brief discussion, a brief interview. He interviewed me about my mission and asked me about my testimony. I remember he asked me to bear my testimony. And, and at that point, I just kind of broke down, because I was like, my testimony has been strengthened a ton within the last, 15, 16 months of my life. I've truly come to know that, that the church is true, and that the Book of Mormon is true, and that Joseph Smith was a true prophet of God. And I remember, just simply telling him, the greatness, the great blessings that I saw in my mission, and the miracles that I had. And, just telling him that I was super excited to serve what I served, but I wanted to keep going. And I remember as I was talking to him, he just said, he's like, well, Elder Cruz, he's like, I got your release papers here. He's like, but if you really don't feel like you're ready, then I can, try to see what I can do and talk to, the First Presidency, and, just talk to them and see what we can do to make it so that you can finish your 2 years. He's like, that way I don't have to release you. And I said yes. I remember I told him yes. And so he basically didn't release me, and he allowed me to go home, but he didn't allow me to go home with my family. I remember he sent me home with my young men's leader, and I stayed with him for the next day. And then the next morning I woke up, went to work with him, but I was still missionary, and it wasn't like anything that I was doing. I wasn't like physically working, but I was sitting there with him the whole day because I couldn't be alone because I was still missionary, so I still had to live by mission rules. I couldn't watch TV, I couldn't do anything, and I mean, it was kind of hard because, at the same time I kind of wanted to watch TV. I was like, it's been for so long since I haven't watched TV. And so, just going to work with him, it wasn't necessarily the funnest thing, but it was worth it because, I knew that my stake president was going to do everything he could in his power to allow me to stay on my mission and to finish out my 2 years, And so I remember that day, the missionaries from my home stake, they actually called me and they said, hey, we heard that you're home. The stake president called us. We heard that you're home. We're wondering if you could come out with us and just teach with us. He's like, you're still missionary, you're still set apart, you can still come out with us. And I remember I went out with them, and I was as happy as could be. Even though I was teaching there within like my home stake boundaries, obviously we weren't close to home, but like we just tried to work in a different part of the stake boundary. I was super excited and I was happy because I knew it was exactly what I had to be doing. I knew I wasn't supposed to be home, but obviously I still had to go through the doctors and stuff, and I got medicine to help my sickness out. And I met with them twice in the first week that I was home just to try to figure out what's going on with me. And then they finally figured out that what was wrong, and they were able to put me on medications to help me, stabilize my health and just to make things better. And I remember that same night when I was out with the missionaries, it was like about 8:30 p.m. The missionaries actually said, you know what, let us call our mission president and we'll see if you can stay with us. And I remember I was super stoked. I was just like, yeah, do that. I was like, let's do that. Let's call him. Let's see if I can stay with you guys because I really don't want to go. Like, I don't want to stay. Not that I didn't want to stay with my young men's leader, but I just don't want to be tempted where there's like TV and stuff. I was like, I'd much rather just be out here serving and, doing the things that I should be doing with you guys. And I remember they called the mission president. The mission president said, sure, why not? Like, if he's still set apart and he's a full-time missionary, then he can go and do that with you guys. And so I remember I stayed with them for the next 3 days. I was with them every single day. I'd get up with them, have studies with them. And I remember, I did everything possible to maintain that missionary spirit that I had. And so we'd go out and teach and, share the gospel. And it was funny because a lot of the times I'd run into people that I knew and they're just like, Elder Cruz, like, what are you doing here? And I was just like, oh, I just had to go explain everything that happened. And they'd be like, okay, well, welcome home. We're excited to hear where you go next. And so it was funny because at the end of the third day, I was just kind of wondering if I was even going to have a chance because my stake president told me it wouldn't take that long to figure out what would happen. And so the fifth day comes around, and the mission president actually called the phone of the elders, and he wanted to talk to me. And I remember the mission was just barely starting, so I was like one of the first missionaries in the mission because when I got with those elders, they were fresh new from the Ogden mission, and they had just started in the Logan mission because the mission had just opened. And it was a fairly new mission, and so I was just kind of excited because the mission president called me and he's just like, Elder Cruz, he's like, how would you like, coming in and meeting with me? And then we'll just discuss some things about the mission and things that you have to do, and we'll see what happens. And I was like, okay, I was super excited to go and meet with him because I knew at that point that I might have my opportunity to finish my mission. And so I remember going in and talking to him, and he just talked to me, interviewed me, basically just, told me he was super excited at the end of the interview. The only thing he said, well, Elder Cruz, welcome to the mission. I'm super excited to have you. You're going to finish your mission here in the Logan mission. Obviously, it's where you live. It's within your home boundaries, but you're not going to serve close to home. We're going to put you as far either north or south as we can put you from home. And so I remember, my first area was going to Ogden. He's just like, you'll be going to Ogden in Spanish. And so I remember going, transfers came around, and I traveled down to Ogden, which is 45 minutes from my home. And I was there with my companion, and, I was just super stoked to be there. And my companions were actually I was in the English area at first. I was in the North Ogden stake, serving in that North Ogden area of Ogden City. And my companions, Elder Menendez and Elder Rivera, they were just super awesome guys like outgoing, and like, I was super excited to be with them because I knew I'd have a blast. Not only, that we would have fun, but that we'd be good together and that we'd be able to share the gospel with others and truly, have the opportunity to become a missionary, or not necessarily to become, but to be a missionary once again, and to actually have an area and a companion, and to be able to share the gospel and the knowledge of the truth that I had with others. And I remember just getting myself into the mission field and just like, letting myself go. And it was a different experience for sure. Obviously, I knew I was close to home, but it was an amazing opportunity for me to be able to see the church within my own state and within like my own home boundaries and what it was like around me. Because obviously you grow up there and you remember the church, but you're blinded because you know what the church is and you know what the community's like, you know whose members are around you. But just to go and be a missionary and see the missionary side of Utah and what the church is in Utah, especially in the Logan mission, was awesome. It was a unique experience.